恭敬大德圣听，为之发挥一切众生。经转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生多时离苦得乐，殊胜无生。View the Sangha with great virtue out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings. Please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo saranto suchetoye alahati sanmiao sanbuddho 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. Namo, quelling disasters, ending 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 life, Medicine Master Buddha. Medicine Master does come one. 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 Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, and all good knowing advisors, Amitabha, welcome back. We are on Sutra lecture number 208. It's 208, right? Not 209. I think it's 208. Okay. Anyway, today we are continuing to look at what it means when they say to worship the Buddha, venerate, worship, respect. These are all the same things. And you will find in various sutras, sometimes they give a whole list of those. Sometimes they use only one. Okay, and today I'm actually quite excited because I found something which was very inspirational, and it highlights how powerful the practice of worshiping the Buddha. Just before, let me refresh everyone's memory. What is worshiping? Also known as puja or gongyang, and it is the Samantabhrada Bodhisattva's conduct and vows. The 10 conduct and vows come from here. It's derived from here. So anything we do, like when you see in the sutras, when they make offerings to the Buddha, they play music, they make praises, they provide the 6 kinds of offerings to the Buddha. All those is considered as puja. So it's a huge topic. And because it's a huge topic and it's a very, very interesting topic, I have decided, just like any other topics in the sutra, that we will take our time to go through slowly from different sources what it means to venerate and worship the Buddha. And then what I'm using Samantabhrada Bodhisattva's conduct and vows as the map. Okay, so we are still at the first one, which is worshiping the Buddha. All right. Okay. As usual, if you have any questions or anything to share, just unmute your microphone or type into the chat box. Okay. Now, for today, we'll start by looking at Shufu's commentary from the Lotus Sutra. There's this part in the Lotus Sutra, there's a verse, says, there may be those free from anger who are straightforward and gentle, always compassionate with all beings and reverent to the Buddhas. You may teach this sutra to such people. Okay, it's a way of knowing who is ready to receive the teachings of the Lotus Sutra. Because why? Not everyone can accept the teachings. In fact, when the Buddha wanted to speak the Lotus Sutra, I think about 500 monks and the assembly walked away. I think some of them had the thought that, we don't need to listen to this. We already know, I get that a lot as a monk. Sometimes I want to speak about something. And then if people ask me what's the topic, and after I give the topic, the response is, I already know. They already know it. So they're not interested to listen. Yeah. So that's what happened when the Buddha wanted to speak the Lotus Sutra. And the Buddha said, good, now that all these people have gone, we can get down to business because all the useless drags have gone. Something like that. That's what the Buddha said. Okay, anyway, I'm just giving you context for the verse that we are reading. So Shufu says, suppose you meet someone who never feels anger or hatred. Because anger is one of the 3 poisons: greed, anger, and delusion. One of the 3 poisons. And if you do anything, all right, if you do anything that counters the 3 poisons, especially all 3 together, you get merit. Not blessings, but merit. All right. And if you accumulate a lot of merit, you get good roots. A lot of merits become one good root. And you accumulate a lot of good roots, that's when you know, by observing yourself, if you have good roots or not, by seeing the level of resistance you have towards the Dharma, towards the practice. For example, you have a choice, like Sunday evening. All right, Sunday evening, you can have a lot of things that you can do. You can relax and be lazy. Why? Because Monday morning, you're back to work. Okay, you can watch a movie, you can go out with friends, you can spend time with your family, all very, very important things. But a lot of people with good roots, what do? They choose to listen to the Dharma instead. And for me, when I was younger, that was something which I could never imagine myself doing, much less being on the opposite side, trying to explain what I think the Dharma means. So that's how you know you have good roots. Your resistance to the Dharma and to practice is low. Okay? All right. Now, Shufu says, one without anger will also be free of greed and delusion. These people are also straightforward. Straightforward means what? They're not scheming. They're not trying to see how they can either put you down or they can get an advantage from people. They're just straightforward. They're not scheming in their minds. So they are not, there you go. Shufu says they are not tricky. They're gentle and amicable with everyone. You don't have to be worried about why they want to be friends with you. They are not hot-tempered. They treat all living beings with compassion and empathy, and they venerate all Buddhas. And Shufu says, okay, now most people do not know how to show reverence to the Buddhas. When Shufu was speaking this, he was speaking in the US. And there's a section here that I've taken out where Shufu says, you Americans don't like to bow to the Buddhas or don't know how to bow. And but I've taken that out because we have a slightly different audience. Shiva says, we can show reverence by bowing respectfully to the Buddhas when we see them. If we do not bow to the Buddhas, we are not being reverent. Then Shiva says, why should we bow? He says, the Buddhas are the fathers of all living beings in the world, and we should be respectful to our fathers. Does it mean that the Buddha gave is like related to us family-wise? Maybe, you never know. In the past life, the Buddha could have been a relative. But what Shiva was trying to say is the Buddha's regard for all living beings is the same or actually surpasses the way a father, a proper wholesome father would the same regard they would have for their own child. So Shiva says, when we see the Buddhas, we should bow. When we see Buddha images, we should also bow. Now, I have some slides. Some people wonder, oh, the Buddha is no longer around. Making offerings to the Buddha, we're just making offerings to an image of the Buddha. Does that count? All right, I have some slides to share later. Shiva says, not only that, when we see members of the Sangha who uphold the Dharma, we should bow as well. Shiva says, we should revere the three jewels. So revere is part of worshipping and respecting and venerating. The phrase relevant to the Buddhas, reverent to the Buddhas encompasses being reverent toward the Dharma and the Sangha as well. There is a sutra where the Buddha, upon awakening, he says, oh, I have to, he says, people who live their lives not having anyone to revere or to worship. What he says, let me see if I can remember correctly. He says, lives in suffering. Yeah. If you don't have someone to respect and revere in your life, you actually live in suffering. Then the Buddha searched. He said, is there anyone in this world that he can honor and respect and rely on? Then he found there was no one. Then he realized, oh, all Buddhas of the past, they actually honor the Dharma, his own teachings. And he said he shall do that. Then Lord Brahma came down from his heaven and he told the Buddha, yes, indeed, yes, indeed. He says, why? Because he has seen other Buddhas come and go. His lifespan is so long. Shakyamuni Buddha is not the first Buddha that he has seen. So he told Shakyamuni Buddha, I said, yes, other Buddhas have also done that. Very good, very good. Yeah. Okay. Now, Shiva says, those who study Buddhism must revere not only the Buddhas when they see them, when they see Bodhisattvas, okay, and the same for Arhats, people of great virtue and great practitioners. Who are these? People around us. Go to the temple, they might be there. Usually these people are very quiet. Some of them could even be Pusat, either left-on people or lay people. They could actually be Bodhisattvas coming back to hone their skills. And you wouldn't know. Why wouldn't you know they are Bodhisattvas? Well, you all of us can only know someone by reducing them to a level, right? I mean, if you try to explain what's say like a doctor, a specialist doctor, you try to explain it to a young boy like 12 years old, he can't fathom what it takes to get to that level. He can only understand it at his level, right? Yeah. So basically, if you have taken the Bodhisattva precepts, you will know that you should try to treat everyone level and equally. So Shiva says they must not be arrogant and proud and think that they themselves are so great. When the two Chinese characters, okay, can someone help me pronounce this properly? Anyone? Who can help?
自大.
Okay, thank you so much, Melinda. And was that Randy? Yeah. Okay, meaning self-conceit. 自 means self and ta means great. Oh, okay. Then when you combine them vertically, they make the character chao. Okay, I'm saying that with a Hokkien accent, so I don't know. Cho, maybe cho, I don't know. Meaning stinky. All right, so it says, therefore, no matter who we are, we who study the Dharma should never be self-conceited. Okay, whenever you are arrogant, whenever you think you're better than someone, and being disrespectful, you think you are better. That's what you think. But when other people see you, they see differently. They see arrogance. They see malice. People who gossip, slander. Yeah, that's what happens. Other people see you in that light, unless they have the same fault. then they enjoy getting into the same boat with you. Yeah. Okay, now we move on. This is from Lord Chakra. Okay, so this is called the Buddha Vandana Sutta. Okay, so today the plan is this. Today the plan is I have this great Mahayana Sutra, an excerpt of the sutra I want to share with you. But first, we look at veneration in itself. To be able to venerate the Buddha, all right. Okay, it goes both ways. To be able to venerate the Buddha or worship the Buddha, you must first know how to do that to the people you care for. And if you understand that, then you know how to respect the Buddha. The same goes for from the big to the small as well. If you know how to respect the Buddha, then you will also know how to treat the people who are close to you. Does that make sense? And then depending on how big your heart is, then how many beings can come into there will determine how far along the Mahayana path that you are on. Okay, so we're going to look at some Theravada suttas and see what I'm trying to say. Okay. Now, so Lord Chakra was praising the Buddha. And praising the Buddha is one of Samantabhradra's conduct and vows. So he says, "Rise up, hero, O hero, victor in battle, your burden lowered, debt-free one, wonder in the world. Your mind is fully liberated like the moon on the 15th night." What does debt-free mean? That means it doesn't owe no karmic debt. Yeah, actually the Buddha did have some karmic karmic retribution to undergo. But from the Buddha's vantage point of view, he didn't suffer anything at all. It was more of a teaching for us. Anyway, he praised the Buddha. He praised the Buddha's awakening and achievement. And then Brahma Sahampati, or Lord Brahma, corrected Lord Chakra. He said, "No, that's not how the Buddhas are to be venerated." He says the Buddhas are to be venerated like this. He says, "Rise up, O hero, victor in battle, O caravan leader, debt-free one, wonder in the world." Caravan leader here means you leading people. Okay, you lead people behind you. And it says, "Teach the Dharma, O blessed one. There will be those who will understand." So instead, says Lord Brahma says, "No, you don't praise the Buddha's achievements. Rather, you praise why the Buddha is here for the sake of the Dharma, to lead all beings to ending birth and death." Okay. Now, I want to introduce this sutra to you. This sutra is a very famous sutra. It's called the Sigalovada Sutta. Most Theravada Buddhists are familiar with this sutra. I'm not sure about Mahayana. Mahayana, I think, is like 50-50. 50% might know of this sutra, 50% might not. Okay, so what is this sutra all about? Okay, it starts like this. There was a couple, and they were old, and they had a young son, and they knew that the son, their son wasn't a follower of the Buddha. So the couples were disciples of the Buddha, but not the son, just like many modern families right now. So knowing that their end was coming, I think maybe because of old age, they had a plan. So they told the son, say, "After we are gone, you should worship the 6 directions." Why did they tell the son that? Well, they knew that the Buddha, when the Buddha saw the son worshipping the 6 directions, like bowing, saluting the 6 directions, the Buddha would correct the son. He would actually tell the son what it actually means. What are the 6 directions? Okay, you got the 4 directions of north, south, east, and west. And then you got directly below, which is the nadir, and the zenith, which is directly on top. Okay, so after the parents had passed away, this young man who was very filial, okay, was a very filial son, he did that. And he says here, with wet clothes and wet hair. I think that's a sign of mourning, because in other sutras, then the people are mourning is described as having wet clothes and wet hair. So he was doing that, and then the Buddha, going out for alms round, saw him, so took the opportunity to turn it into a teaching. Okay, all right. So And he explained to the Buddha why he was doing that. He said, "Oh, my father told me that I should do this." So then the Buddha said, "Oh, actually, that's not how the 6 quarters should be worshipped." So this made the young man curious. Although he wasn't a disciple of the Buddha, but because he was filial, I think he wanted to make sure he carried out his parents' or his father's instructions well. So he asked the Buddha to explain. So the Buddha said, "Well, the East means your parents and your children. That means your direct family. And then the South are the teachers and the relationship between teachers and students. The West is husband and wife. The North are friends and companions. The Nadir, which is the direction underneath, relationship between masters and employees. That means employer and employees. And the zenith, the top, means relationship with ascetics or religious teachers. Okay. So the Buddha is saying it's not the 6 directions that you pray to. What the Buddha is trying to say is it is your duties. For venerating the 6 directions means fulfilling your responsibilities, fulfilling what is required of you, your duties in your different relationships. And these relationships are broken into 6. Okay. And if you have this, then you can have a harmonious and hopefully prosperous family. Okay. So the Buddha explains more. Okay, before this, the Buddha tells him about precepts. The Buddha explains to him how to find good friends. In this sutra is very interesting. The Buddha takes on the tone of like an uncle because he has no more parents. The Buddha is basically teaching him how to be a responsible young man, how to make money in a wholesome manner, how to retain the money, how to identify good friends from bad friends, how to avoid bad habits that will ruin one's reputation and will cause your wealth to be lost, for example. So it's like giving him life lessons on how to be a good young person. So here the Buddha talks about how if you have parents, what are the roles of a child? So you support your parents because they have supported you before. Then you do their duties, you keep any traditions that the family has maintained, the culture. Make yourself worthy of your inheritance. That means be responsible. Don't squander your inheritance. And then make offerings in honor of your ancestors, your departed relatives. Okay. And this is also taking into account the Indian culture at that time. All right. And then it says, in response, the parents should teach children and tell them not to do evil deeds, encourage them to be good, train them for a career, how to earn a living, arrange a suitable marriage for them. Like I said, this is reflective of the culture in India at that time. And then at the proper time, hand over the inheritance to them. So that's what the parents should do. So this is a very interesting sutta. And then when it comes to the South, to a teacher, so when you see a teacher, you rise from the seat, and then in salutation, that means you put your palms together respectfully. You attend to your teacher. For example, like today, in the morning, I teach this English Dharma class in Sampotong Temple in Ampang. And there's always someone, sometimes they take turns, who will make sure that I have something warm to drink. So that's what it means by attending on them. You show an eagerness to learn. All right, that's very important. You provide personal service in whatever way you can that the teacher may need, and respectful attention while receiving instructions. So you pay attention. And then in return, the teacher will reciprocate by training the student in in the best discipline, making sure they learn their lessons well, teaching them the subjects like here, arts and sciences, introduce them to their friends and associates. That's interesting, right? And provide for their safety in every quarter. Now, we move on to husband and wife, the West. Husband should always be courteous to your wife. Don't despise your wife. You should be faithful to your wife. You hand over authority to her. That means you trust her. Let her, like for example, this depends on the dynamics of the relationship, but usually, traditionally, during the Buddha's time, the wife will take care of everything in the house. All right, so you don't go interfere. Everything in the house, if she wants to fire the maid, if she wants to change the maid, okay, you go along with your wife's wishes. All right, and then you provide her with adornments. That's how you show your love and your affection for your wife. Okay. Then what should the wife do? Well, the wife should carry out her duties well, be hospitable to relations and attendants. That means maintain harmony among people in the house, be faithful, protect what he brings, and skilled and industrious in discharging her duties. Yeah. Okay. I see. I know I'm going to make like a reminder. Most monks and nuns in DRBA, when they give a lecture, they request that people have their names registered. That means your phone, your Zoom name should be there. They also ask for the location. For me, location doesn't matter for me, but I would. I think having your name on your phone is I don't think there's any reason to hide your name. Yeah. So for those of you in the future, if the name is like your phone's name or some name, just change it to your true name. Okay. Our respect for everyone. Okay. Now, and then for friends, okay, which is represented by the north. The direction of the north. It says by being liberal with your friends, courteous speech, by being helpful, impartial. That means don't choose, treat them equally, and being sincere with your friends. And what will your friends do? Well, when you are heedless, they protect you. They try to help you make responsible decisions. They protect your property when you are irresponsible. When you are in danger, you can turn to your friends for help. And when you're in trouble, they will help you. They do not leave you alone. And they also take care of your family. Right? Okay. Now, Nadir, the direction below. These are someone with servants and employees or people you work with. Okay, you assign them work according to their ability. You supply them with food and with wages. When they're sick, you actually tend to them. You don't say if you're sick, that's your problem. Okay. And number 4, you have anything that's good to eat, you share with them. Isn't that interesting? Okay. And then you grant them leave at times. That means that's like standard. That's like modern HR practices. Yeah. And then in turn, okay, if you're an employee and you have a good boss, or even if you don't have a good boss, your responsibilities are you rise before your boss or your employer. You only go to sleep after they do. Then you only take what is given. That means you don't steal. You perform your duties well and you uphold the good name of your employer and his reputation. Okay, but both sides have to play their role. Okay, now householder and someone with monks and ascetics and Brahmins. Okay, so you treat them with lovable deeds, lovable words, lovable thoughts by having your house open to them. For example, when it's time to provide alms and supplying their material needs. Okay. Then they in turn, okay, your teachers in the Dharma, what should they do? They try to point out the proper path so you don't make unwholesome choices that you will regret later. And they persuade you to do good things. And then they will have a kind heart, a fondness for you in their hearts. And they will make you hear what you have not heard before. That means they try to find the Dharma that's interesting, that's useful to you. And then things that you have heard, they try to make sure you understand. They clarify it. And then they point the path to a heavenly state. In the Dharma, it would be to the like for example, the Noble Eightfold Path or towards the Pure Land. Okay, so the Buddha concludes the sutra by saying, mother and father are the east, teachers are the south, wife and children are the west, friends and associates are the north, servants and employees are the nadir, and ascetics and Brahmins are the zenith. Zenith. Someone help me pronounce Zenith. In my mind, I can say it, but when I say it to my own ears, it sounds so weird. Zenith. Okay, anyway. Yes, Alex.
Zenith.
Zenith. Okay, all right. So it says, who is fit to lead the householder life? These 6 quarters, he should salute. That means these are the responsibilities any decent person should be able to do. Who is wise and virtuous, gentle and keen-witted, humble and amenable, such a one to honor may attain. Who is energetic and not indolent, in misfortune unshaken, flawless in manner and intelligent or intelligence, such a one to honor may attain. The context for this is the earlier part of the sutra, which I didn't share, in which the Buddha taught him how to choose good friends, how to don't be a rascal, don't go out too late at night and wander the streets, things like that. Then the Buddha says, who is hospitable and friendly, liberal and unselfish, a guide and instructor, a leader, such a one to honor may attain. Then generosity, sweet speech, helpfulness to others, impartiality to all as the case demands. And it says, these 4 meaning ways make the world go round, as the linchpin in a moving car. So it's not money that makes the world go around, it's how you treat people well. If these in the world exist not, neither mother nor father will receive respect and honor from their children. So it says, since these 4 meaning ways, the wise appraise in every way, to eminence they attain, and praise they rightly gain. Okay, now let me see what's these slides are supposed to be, I don't know why it's in this order. These slides are supposed to be when it comes to the praise section, but now since we are here the Buddha says this, because we are talking about respecting and venerating the Buddha, right? So what happens if the opposite happens? If someone scolds the Buddha, or slanders the Buddha, or gossips about the Buddha, or abuses the Buddha. So the Buddha, the context for why I started the sutra here is because some people accuse the Buddha of teaching nihilism because of the teachings of not self. So Buddha says, no, says, because formally and now what I teach is suffering and the cessation of suffering. Okay, the Buddha says, all I talk about, all the teachings in the Theravada teachings is meant, not Theravada, in the early sutras, is meant to help you end suffering, to end birth and death. Then he says, if others abuse, revile, scold, and harass the Buddha for that, the Buddha on that account feels no annoyance, bitterness, or dejection of the heart. The Buddha doesn't feel anything. Even if others harbor malice or ill will in their heart. And the Buddha says, if others honor, respect, revere, and venerate. So that's the standard formula you see. Honor, respect, revere, and venerate. Sometimes they throw in worship as well. And then it says, if these people honor the Buddha for that, then it says the Buddha on that account feels no delight, joy, or elation of the heart. Okay, so if they praise the Buddha also doesn't feel happy. Why? It says, if others honor, respect, revere, and venerate the Tathagata for that. The Tathagata on that account thinks thus. So the thoughts that goes on in the Buddha is to perform such services as these for me in regard to this which earlier was fully understood. So they do it out of appreciation of the Dharma. So the Buddha doesn't allow it to go to his head. Now, Buddha gives advice to the monks. He says, if anyone abuse, revile, scold, harass you, this includes gossip, slander, what else? Anything that is unpleasant. Okay, the Buddha says, if you are my monks, you, like Shufu says, if someone were to say bad things about Shufu, he says, as my disciples, you should not defend me. Don't fight with them. Then you are my true disciple. So here the Buddha says that. He says you should not entertain any annoyance, bitterness, or dejection of the heart. And then conversely, if people praise you, okay, they honor, respect, revere, and venerate you, also you should not entertain any delight, joy, or elation. Okay, it's because either you're wearing the robes or you're teaching them Dharma or you're a disciple of the Buddha, then they are doing that. Okay. Interestingly, yesterday I was teaching a diploma in Buddhism. And after the class, one of the students drives me back. He's a retired doctor. And he basically he was kind of not complaining, but he was telling me how sometimes his patients are not understanding at all. Yeah, basically is the saying, no good deed goes unpunished. And I think if anyone knows that well enough, it's doctors are one of them. If Dr. Ho and Levan, who are both doctors, I'm sure you have your own stories where you try to help someone, right? So what he was telling me is that he has encountered many patients where whenever he has to deliver certain news that may not be bad, or the outcome of his patients do not go according to their patients' expectations, but he's tried his best and he has nothing but goodwill in his heart for his patients, but yet they try to they attack him. Yeah, either by complaining about him to other people, spreading rumors, or he said, one of his patients said, are you really telling me that there is no cure for this illness, or that you do not, it's your ignorance, you don't know of any cure? Or is it because it's too expensive that you don't want to waste money by giving me the treatment? Yeah, things like that. So basically, no good deed goes unpunished. So what do you do? If you are the result of gossip, slander, or unpleasant things, you treat these people as your good knowing advisors. So what do you do? It's a rare opportunity to use your meditation to overcome your own shortcomings. Because why? If it affects you, it just shows that you're probably attached to your ego or whatever it is that you haven't overcome in your practice. Yourself, the concept of the self is still very strong. You're worried about what people think of you instead of just concentrating on your work or in your practice. So Shufu says this kind of things polish you. You take a rough stone like a diamond or a gemstone in the rough. It doesn't look like anything special, and you have to polish it, you have to cut it, and for it to become something precious. So what do you do? Well, if you know how to meditate, you meditate until your mind is very still. Okay. How do you know your mind is very still? You start to think of the problem that you have. And when you do, you will be able to sit with what is going on without emotions coming up. That means you will be totally impartial. That's when you know that your mind is still. And then if you want, you can investigate yourself, and or if your emotions come up and you do not, how you say, you are in a position where you do not follow after your emotions, you can just observe. That's the key to discovering more about yourself. You can ask yourself, why do I feel this way? These are just words. These are people with malicious intent. If this is provided you haven't done anything to harm them, okay? If everything that you do is out of goodwill, and yet they are still that way, okay, that means you're not at fault, all right? And a few things can happen just by contemplating what's going on in the still mind. You realize that the next time you hear about this kind of news again, it doesn't affect you at all. It's like water off a duck's back, and you are just free of stress. It's actually very, very liberating. Then you understand a small taste of freedom. Yeah. Or when you contemplate and you realize where the problem is, then you work at the problem. Maybe it's a matter of not getting the recognition you want, or your ego is hurt, or whatever it is. Then you know where you can work on. Okay. All right. Now let me see. So when you are respectful and you venerate not just the Buddha, but other in your relationships, you carry out your relationships. You carry out your responsibilities well. Well, in this sutra, also about Lord Chakra, the Buddha says there was one time Lord Chakra wanted to go out, and then the Lord Chakra, as he was coming towards his chariot, he put his palms together and he worshipped different quarters. That means the 4 directions. And then his driver, which is named as Matali, yes, Lord Chakra has a driver, and he asked the Lord Chakra, he says, people humbly worship you. Those words in the Triple Veda, all the Katiyas, that means the kings on earth, the 4 great kings, and the glorious 30, that means the inhabitants of the heaven below, and the inhabitants of the Triumtrimsha heaven. They say all of them, men included and kings, they worship you, they pray to you. Okay. Then he says, so who is it that you bow in worship? All right. So Chakra explains, he says, yes, these all humbly worship me. Okay. But he himself worships those endowed with virtue, those long trained in concentration. Who is he talking about? Well, in another version of this sutra, he talks about the Buddha. Here he talks about people who are practicing the path, people who hold the precepts, people who practice meditation. It says those who have properly gone forth, the mendicants, the monks, and the nuns, with the holy life their destination. Then he also says, I worship as well, O Matali, those householders making merit, the lay followers possessed of virtue who righteously maintain a wife. Okay, so imagine that. Most people in this world, they pray to their gods, right? But if you maintain good relations with everyone around you, then Lord Chakra will worship you instead. Wouldn't that be nice, right? Okay, so Matali agrees. And then Matali, he said, oh, I shall also follow your example. And then the Buddha concludes this sutra by saying, he says, having given this explanation, having worshipped the different quarters, the Deva King Magawa, Suja's husband, the chief, climbed into his chariot. You remember it? Was it last week, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks? I gave the story about how Lord Chakra married the Asura king's daughter, and then Levan said her name was Suja, and sometimes that's why Lord Chakra is known as Suja's husband, which you see on your screen. Also, one of his names is also Magawa. Okay. Okay, now let me see what's next. I want to skip some of this. And okay, I want to come to this one. It's really, at least for me, I found it really, really inspiring. And why was it inspiring? Today, one of the students in the English Dharma class, this lady and her friend gave me a lift back to the temple. And they have spent many, many years, 30, 40 years studying the Theravada suttas. And now I'm introducing Mahayana Sutras and the Pure Land to them. And her remark to me, which is that she has made quite a few times, is that she's always thought Mahayana was ceremonies, chanting and ceremonies. And because a lot of the Mahayana temples, they speak Chinese and she's English educated. So to her, to access what Mahayana meant wasn't that, maybe she didn't look hard enough, I don't know. Anyway, she said that now as she's learning more and more about Mahayana, she says it makes so much sense. She says she's so happy to learn about Mahayana Sutras and the Pure Land because the world is so big. She said the universe is so big. Then in class, we were having the same conversation and the participants said that the early suttas is like a village. It's like you are a child in a village and there's one temple in the village, because they were asking me what's the timeline of all the Buddhas, like how many Buddhas are there and all that. And then Mahayana Sutra is represented by, if you leave the village and you visit the whole world, and you realize that, oh, there are temples everywhere. There's not just one monk. So your local temple only has one monk. But you go around and you find that, oh, some temples have so many monks and nuns. And there are big temples, small temples, and so many accomplished, eminent monks. And yeah, so they were, very happy to learn the scope of Mahayana and that it goes far beyond just ceremonies and the chanting. Okay, so in this sutra, there's an error. The collected teachings on the Bodhisattva, there should be a capital B. It's a long sutra. It's there's a Sanskrit version and the Chinese version. This is translated from the Sanskrit version. And I think towards the end of the sutra, after the Buddha has taught the sutra known as the Collected Teachings on the Bodhisattva, this man by the name of Naradatta, who is a merchant, he put his hands together and he told the Buddha, he faced the Buddha and he told the Buddha, he says, the elder venerable Aniruddha has encouraged me and instructed me in the following way. Householder, you must attain the state of an arhat, since this will put an end to aging and death. All right. Then he tells the Buddha, he says, now that I have listened to this cycle of teachings contained in the collected teachings on the Bodhisattva in the presence of the Buddha, that means this is the first time he's hearing of the Bodhisattva path, of the path to becoming a Buddha. All right. Previously, it was about ending birth and death, becoming an arhat. He says he has, after learning about the Buddha and then the characteristics of the Bodhisattvas, it must have spoken to his heart, because it says he has concluded that the Mahayana is the best, the most excellent, supreme, superior, and unsurpassed when it comes to unsurpassed perfect awakening. So can you imagine what are the chances of me having the conversation this morning in class of someone who had the same experience, exactly the same experience coming from the Theravada and encountering the Mahayana. And then this afternoon, after I had finished the class and I was doing research for today's lecture, I come across this sutra. And I said, wow, it's exactly this discussion that I had this morning. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so basically this person, what's his name again? Let me see. What's his name? His name is Naradatta. Okay. Basically, he faputi-sin. He brought forth the Bodhi resolve. Okay. So it's a long sutra and there's a few slides, but I'm just going to summarize everything. So basically, he's telling the Buddha his aspirations. So he says, in this matter, Buddha, it is my view that among all the vehicles, that means the sound hearer vehicle, the Prachika Buddha vehicle, he says, the one that ranks highest is the unsurpassed Buddha Yana. Yana means vehicle, so it's a Buddha vehicle. So if he were to study the Lotus Sutra, he would definitely accept it. He wouldn't leave the assembly. And it says, whatever vehicles there may be, it is the Tathagata Yana that can be proclaimed as the best among them, and so forth. That it says nothing surpasses the Buddha vehicle. Then it says, I will cultivate the mind of unsurpassed perfect awakening for the sake of the many. So he's not thinking of doing it for himself. He wants to liberate all beings. He says, for the benefit of the many, for the happiness of the many, for the love of the world, in order to help benefit and bring happiness to a great multitude of beings. So first time he hears the Bodhisattva teachings, and straight away he already brings forth the vow for Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. So when he told the Buddha this, the Buddha cautioned him. The Buddha says, Naradatta, he says, unsurpassed perfect awakening is difficult to attain. The Buddha doesn't want him to be too enthusiastic, try too hard, and then let himself down. Yeah, it's difficult to accomplish. But he says, Buddha, even if unsurpassed perfect awakening is difficult to attain and difficult to accomplish, he says there's a certain type of vigorous approach by means of which I can attain unsurpassed perfect awakening. He says, I must not miss the opportunity for Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Then he says, so basically he's just saying, no, I'm really set on it. This is, okay, so it says, even if my head needs to be cut off as many times as there are grains of sand in the river Ganges in order for every such mind of awakening to arise, I will not abandon his vow. Basically, he's making a vow. Yeah. He says, but continue to work enthusiastically to attain perfect awakening. And he says he will employ all means to fully realize. He says, why? Because it's the best. Perfect awakening is the best. He says the knowledge of the Buddha, all the qualities of the Buddha, he says is nothing can compare to it. And what he wants is the best. So in verse, he says, may the mind of awakening arise in me for thousands of millions of eons. That means he never wants this vow of his to be forgotten. And may I not give up on sentient beings for as long as they must suffer all this pain. For every single moment of this motivation, may I be willing to sever as many of my heads as it will take to make a heap the size of Mount Meru. See, not many people can be that brave. It says, for the benefit of all living beings, I will apply myself to awakening, just as it is for you, Buddha. May this become my sole endeavor. And it says the Hina Yana is a lesser vehicle. Okay, the translation uses this word, but to be polite, we should say the sound hearer vehicle, which is the what Yana again? Suddenly it just slipped my mind.
Shravaka Yana.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah. Well, there you go. Shrav is there in the next line. Thank you so much. So it says, and so having left the Shravaka Yana behind, may this become my sole endeavor. And it says, this vehicle is the greater vehicle. It's praised by the Buddhas. Yeah, he even makes a vow. It says, he will even protect those who harm others and free them from the three lower realms. Why? Because people do this out of ignorance. When you harm others, either through your words, through your deeds, through your actions, through your thoughts, people do it out of ignorance. Because if they knew the hurt it will cause people, they will stop. Or the hurt, sometimes they do it because they want to hurt others. Okay, fine. But if they realize the hurt that it would cause to themselves, especially if the other person is not trying to harm you in any way, there was this monk, I can't remember his name, was it Cole starts with a K, and he saw, I think, Venerable Shariputra and some other monk with a woman, and he accused them of breaking their precepts. Even the Buddha told him 3 times, said, don't say that, don't say that. But he persisted. And basically his body broke out in balls. I think it was cancerous. I think modern times would call it some cancerous things. And if I'm not mistaken, the earth swallowed him alive because he didn't take back his words. Yeah. So if you never know, even if you think you're right, the Buddhist, that's why we have Bodhisattva precepts to prevent us from making transgressions. Okay, so you may have a question. Mahayana Theravada term, isn't it after the Buddha passed on? During Buddha time already have this term? You may, does anyone know? Okay, so you may's question is this. The terms Theravada, Mahayana, is it something during the Buddha's time or is it something after? Does anyone know? Yeah, if anyone knows, or you can find out, please share, or the next class, next lecture, you can share. I don't know because my understanding of Buddhist history isn't that great. But in the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha, they talk about the different vehicles. That much I know. Yes, actually, in the different sutras, the Buddha talk about different vehicles. And in the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha says about the sound hearer vehicle, the Pacheka Buddha vehicle, the Bodhisattva vehicle. He uses the ox cart, the deer cart as metaphors. And then, so Dr. Ho says he believes it came after. Yeah. So, as maybe it was added after, like in the sutras. But in the Lotus Sutra, I think the Buddha did mention that. So it doesn't matter. As long as you know which vehicle you belong to, then it's fine. Okay? All right. Because there's no way to prove. We can't go back to the Buddha's time and ask. But if you have certain abilities and you can communicate with the gods in the heaven, like Lord Brahma, for example, who's been around very long, you can ask ask Lord Brahma. Okay, all right. Then okay. So coming back to our sutra, our merchant Naradatta then realized, he says, this work in front of me, he says, is huge. It's going to take a lot of work. And he realizes that he cannot do it with having his family, his wife and children. So what he did he do? He quickly went back home. Okay. And why is his burden so great? Because he has 7 wives, 7 sons, 7 daughters, 7 male servants, and 7 female servants. Okay. 7 wives. Okay. 1 wife maybe, is less complicated, but he has 7. So what did he do? He gathered his family. Obviously, he had a discussion with his family first. He gathered his family. They brought offerings with them. Not just offerings, but they brought 500 musicians, and they came back to see the Buddha. Okay. Then I think this happened during a different time because the humans and the non-human inhabitants, spirits around, saw what was happening, and they asked him, "Where are you going?" Because he was rushing. And he explains that, the Buddha is now on Vulture's Peak, and he is speaking the Dharma in a huge, huge assembly, and is revealing things that he has never heard before. And what he wants to do is he wants to go and learn from the Buddha, and he wants to go with his servants and his family and all that. And then he says he needs to do this. Why? Because he needs instruction. He has his vows. He has his goal, but he's not quite sure how to achieve it. So he needs to learn more from the Buddha. And he encourages them. He says, if you want the same thing, why don't you come with me? Come, we can learn about virtue and how great is the Buddha path or the Bodhisattva path. And so a lot of them, 10,000 followed him. Okay, so they all went, all right. What did they do? Flowers, incense, garlands, ointments, aromatic powders, fabrics, etc., etc., music, flags. This is how you worship and venerate the Buddha outwardly. Okay, outwardly. Inwardly, what he was doing, he was showing his sincerity. Outwardly, he was showing his sincerity for an inward desire of the Dharma. Okay, then he made praises to the Buddha, not just the physical, but he praised the Buddha and why he was making this offering. And he brought his children and servants, and not just that, 10,000 people come. And then he told the Buddha, he says, Buddha, all of us, myself and this great number of sentient beings have come to seek an audience with the Buddha so that we can set out for unsurpassed perfect awakening. He was so inspiring that, all of them shared his aspiration. And he says, Buddha, please teach them the kind of Dharma they need in order to all be set irreversibly on their way to unsurpassed perfect awakening. Okay, he says, please tell me, Buddha, what kinds of roots of virtue I should cultivate. That means what kind of merit, not just merit, but accumulated merit. And virtue he will need to attain this unsurpassed awakening. Okay, then, because it's almost time, it's actually time, we have to stop. The retinue, basically, they agreed. They also made the same request of the Buddha. He says, may the Buddha accept us as lay disciples. And then they take refuge with the Buddha, and they also take the precepts. Okay, now some things happen. For example, the Buddha sat floating in the sky, and then the 500 musicians saw the Buddha floating in the sky, and then they dropped the instruments, but the instruments floated in the sky, and then they played the instruments while suspended in midair. Use your imagination. What I'm trying to rush through is basically the Buddha put on a display, a miraculous display to fill them with faith. And then then the Buddha smiled. Now, Buddhas don't usually smile. Okay, they have like a quiet smile, but this time the Buddha smiled. And so two things usually in the sutras that I can remember. When the Buddha smiles, like when he held up the flower to proclaim that Mahakashyapa received the transmission of the Petraki, and when light shines from the Buddha, these are usually a sign that something's going on. And then someone will ask the Buddha. So in this case, it was Venerable Ananda who asked the Buddha, say, oh, why are you smiling? Okay. And then the Buddha gives a prediction. All right. So the result, in this case, the result of venerating the Buddha is a prediction, not just for the merchant, but for all of them. Okay. So what does the Buddha say? He says, this merchant will avoid falling into the lower realms for 1 billion eons and will be reborn as a god or a human being. And after 20 billion eons, he will encounter a Buddha. And when he encounters the Buddha, he will praise him, venerate him, honor him, and worship him. And then for another 200 million eons, he will never fall into the lower realms. And then he says, there are 7 wives, the whole family, okay, when they die, they will not be reborn as women. They will always be men. And then with the Bodhisattva Naradatta, they will practice the Bodhisattva way, and they will also attain perfect awakening within 1 eon. And then he says that when Naradatta becomes a Buddha, his Buddha name will be Sammacitta. And then he says all his followers will become Buddhas with various different names. Then he talks about the 500 musicians. He says the 500 musicians will avoid falling into the lower realms for innumerable eons. That means life after life, they are safe from the three lower realms. Why is that important? Because the Buddha says that if you fall into the lower realms to regain a human body, that means to be able to practice again, is extremely, extremely difficult. The Buddha gives the analogy. He says there's a great big ocean. In this ocean, floating randomly is a piece of wood with a hole in it. And there's a blind turtle swimming somewhere around this ocean who comes out for air once every 100 years. He says the chances of the turtle coming up for air in the hole, through the hole in that wood floating randomly in the sea is higher than the chances of you regaining a human body after you fall into the lower realms. So it's a huge deal. Okay. And who else escapes from the three lower realms? First stage Arhat and above. Okay, so it's a big deal. So not only will these 500 musicians, let me read properly. It says the Bodhisattva will become a Buddha, Arhat, the followers. Is there a repeat? No. And it says by way of numbers that they will become billions of kings of the entire world. So not only they escape the three lower realms, but life after life, they will be rulers of the entire world, something like wheel turning king. And then they will encounter 10,000 Buddhas and they will praise them, venerate them, honor them, and serve them. And after one eon, they themselves will become Buddhas. And all of them get the same name. It will be called Manjuswara. And then it says 400 of the 10,000 beings from the city will meet the future Buddha Maitreya and will then attain final nirvana. Okay, this is 400. What happened to the rest? The rest of them will avoid falling into the lower realms for as many eons as there are grains of sand in the Ganges River. In due course, they will encounter 1 billion Buddhas whom they will praise, venerate, honor, and serve, and they will all reach complete and perfect awakening within a single eon. Okay, if you notice the pattern, what's the pattern? Puja. All of them praise, venerate, honor, and serve all Buddhas. And then all of them will get the same name and they become Buddhas. This is Ashtraya. And then he says, the Buddha now talks about himself. He says, after he has attained his nirvana, he says, when the true Dharma has disappeared, when the age of strife has passed, when the Tathagata Maitreya has not yet appeared, when the lifespan of sentient being increases, and when 10,000 Pachika Buddhas appear, there are 1,000 beings among these 6,000 beings who will meet these Pachika Buddhas and who will praise, venerate, honor, and serve them. They will meet Maitreya and they will praise him, venerate, honor, and serve him. And then it says, after this, they will avoid falling into the lower realms for 200,000 million billion eons. And then in their final life, when they attain their final body, that means they become the Buddha, they will realize awakening independently. So the Buddha continues giving prediction. 1,000 of them will reach the insight that is required for the mind of unsurpassed perfect awakening to arise. 6 trillion gods will attain the spotless, pure Dharma vision of phenomena. Okay, we are coming to the end. And the Buddha says, so after the Buddha explained all this, the Buddha says, those who do not cultivate love, faith, respect, and reverence for the Tathagatas, says, who will not do this if they're not immature children, or if they're not like immature children? Why? Because the benefits are so great. The path to Buddhahood begins with like Aradhata, finding out about Mahayana. The Mahayana path brings forth the mind, the Bodhi mind, resolve upon awakening, does puja to the Buddha, venerates, worships, makes offerings, praises the Buddha. And that's how your journey to Buddhahood begins. So the Buddha says, he says, even those whose roots of virtue are weak may in fact attain the state of greatness. And it all starts where? With puja. And the Buddha says, someone who shows reverence for the Buddhas will attain this kind of glory. Therefore, you should venerate the teacher. If you do so, what you give will yield a great result. If someone venerates those who remain or venerates those who have reached nirvana, like now the Buddha is no longer around, even by offering something as small as a mustard seed, he will come to see the Tathagata. If someone venerates those who remain, same formula. It says, even by offering something as small as a mustard seed, the positive effects of their veneration will match their intention. All right. So it all comes down to your heart, your intention. So Buddha says you maintain a balanced mind, you venerate the Buddha, and so too will you yourself. It says ripen in the same way. That means you too, if you set your sights to be just like the Buddha and your heart is in the right place, you will achieve the same. Okay. And let me see if anything I need to read. So it says the Buddha is supreme because of his morality, because of his concentration. And if you have faith in these very same things, you too will achieve what the Buddha can achieve. So if you present the Buddha with supreme offerings means your practice, the results of your practice, then you will quickly reach the same state. You will also become a Buddha and you can get to teach the supreme Dharma. And let me see, this is the last slide already. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. So next week, we will overall on next week. What's happening next week? Next week, Sunday is the 31st. On the 31st, I'm traveling to Singapore. I should be able to hold, unless I have some internet problems or something weird in the hotel room, which will prevent me. But I should be able to hold. Yeah, if not, I'll let everyone know about next week. Okay, before we dedicate merit, does anyone have any questions? Anything to share? No? Okay, today we will do dedication of merit in this style. Okay. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant. Sorry, I accidentally muted myself. I'll start again. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, let's do 3 bows to the Buddha. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Realm Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Okay, everyone, Amitofo. We'll see you all next week.